The first time I tried to read a vintage stereo receiver schematic, I felt like Neo in the Matrix, just staring into those screens of green code, not understanding what any of it meant. But once I understood a few simple concepts, I began to see what was actually there. Let me show you how to break down a schematic so you can look past the maze of lines and symbols and see the individual circuits behind them. This is a Pioneer SX1250 schematic, and in my opinion, the 1250 was the pinnacle of stereo receiver design. All of the necessary features, perfectly executed with none of the frills. So I thought this would make an excellent example for our case study in understanding schematics. Before we jump into the schematic itself, we need to understand the core building blocks of a stereo receiver: tuner, preamplifier, power amplifier. But none of these circuits would function at all without power, so let's add a power supply. The power supply is the heart of any vintage receiver, but how do we even find it in this mess? The easiest way to locate a power supply on a schematic is to work backwards from the power transformer. Usually there'll be a symbol like this, a little AC plug or some convenience outlets that'll give you a clue on where to start looking for the power transformer. If we trace that back, we're going to see this symbol, which is two lines with squiggles on either side. This indicates the primary coil of the power transformer. That's where the AC comes in from the wall, and on the secondary side it gets stepped down to create the various voltages that are needed in the unit. The SX1250 has a rectifier board here that takes the step-down voltage from the power transformer and converts it to DC with a collection of diodes and smoothing capacitors. After that, that's fed into this board here, and this is what we normally call a power supply. This circuit is labeled Power Supply Assembly AWR106. And what it does is it takes that raw DC voltage from the rectifiers and it smooths it out even more, and it also regulates it. So when there's fluctuations due to load conditions or changes in the AC mains, the voltage coming out of this board is going to stay stable. The power supply section in a schematic will often have voltages called out on the outputs of each one of the regulator circuits. So to review, AC comes in from the wall, it enters the power transformer, gets stepped down appropriately, gets rectified, turned into raw DC, which gets sent off to the regulator circuit where we get our stable power supply outputs. So we're going to call this entire section the power supply. Masking off portions of a schematic in your mind is a great way to simplify what you're looking at so that you're not getting confused and overwhelmed by all of these lines and symbols when you might only need to focus on one specific circuit. Let's see if we can locate the tuner. That's going to be a big portion of the schematic that's going to be highly irrelevant in most cases. There's two really clear ways to identify a tuner circuit. First up, we can look for antenna connections. This is labeled 75 ohm unbalanced, 300 ohm balanced. This will lead us straight into the tuner portion. Next up is the tuning gang. This is what actually moves when you rotate the tuning knob on a receiver. And you can always tell a tuning gang because there'll be a series of variable capacitors. So we see the symbol for a capacitor with an arrow through it. And there's often lines like this showing that these are ganged together. So as we turn that tuning knob on the front of the unit, it's opening and closing these capacitors, which changes the frequency that we're going to receive. Tuners can also get broken down into a few different key parts. We have the front end, which usually holds the tuning gang, some RF amplification, and the local oscillator section. After that, we have the IF section, which is going to decode the FM and AM radio stations from the received signal. And then there's usually a stereo decoder circuit for FM stereo and other convenience features like muting or automatic gain control. Diagnosing and repairing tuners is a pretty advanced skill, and it usually requires specialized test equipment and a lot of background knowledge. When troubleshooting a receiver, just trying to restore basic function on the auxiliary or phono inputs, the tuner can largely be ignored. And if we mask that off, look at how much of the schematic that eliminates. And while we're on the topic of eliminating non-essential information, let's go ahead and mask off this lamp circuit and this circuit down here, which is just a simplified version of the second amplifier channel. You can already see how ignoring irrelevant sections can really simplify what we're looking at. A well-drawn schematic will indicate the signal path from left to right, just like you're reading a book. So with that in mind, where do you think we're going to start looking for the preamp? Left side at the inputs. The circuit closest to the inputs is labeled equalizer assembly. Now, a lot of people get this confused and think this is the tone circuit, but in this case, equalizer actually means phono stage. If we trace this line from phono 1, it leads into this switch bank. If we imagine this switch getting activated, we can see how the signal will pass into this next circuit. The equalizer amp or phono stage is responsible for stepping up the voltage from a sensitive phono pickup and then applying an RIAA EQ to the signal to correct the compensation that's applied when the record is produced. When the signal leaves this board, its frequency response and amplitude are roughly the same as a normal line level source like a CD player or a tape deck, maybe a little bit lower. If we start at the auxiliary jack instead and follow the line, it completely bypasses the equalizer circuit and goes right into the switch assembly. So at this point, we can eliminate the phono stage and move on to the next circuit. This block is called the flat amp. But what does that mean? Flat refers to frequency response. The signal coming into this board, if we compare it to the output, is basically the same when we look at the highs and the lows. This circuit is all about changing the volume level while maintaining proper impedance matching and also adding some features, sometimes loudness and attenuation like -20 dB muting. Thinking about the tuner and the phono stage as line level sources is a good way to understand what's going to happen next. Before a signal enters the flat amp, it has to go through some sort of input selection. If we're feeding in an auxiliary source, it just bypasses all of this, comes straight to the selector switch, and goes right into the flat amp. But if we're running a turntable, that signal has to travel through the phono stage before it gets here. If we're listening to the radio, that's going to come through the antenna, go through the tuner, and then end up here. So according to the flat amp, tuner, phono stage, auxiliary tape, they're all the same. Line level sources entering here. Our schematic's getting pretty small, isn't it? After the flat amp, we have the tone circuit. This is where we have the opportunity to affect the frequency response by changing the bass, mid, and treble frequencies. We know we're getting close to the end of the preamp section because we can see the pre-out main in jacks. After the signal leaves this next circuit, we're off to the power amplifier. This circuit is labeled filter amp, and that's going to be connected to controls like high filter, low filter, and you can think about them as kind of a preset EQ for eliminating rumble at a turntable or controlling hiss on an FM tuner. I've labeled the power supply in green, the tuner in orange, and the preamp section in blue. We just have one thing left, and that's the power amplifier. Finding the power amplifier section of a receiver is usually pretty easy. One of the best ways is to look for pre-out main in jacks. If you find a main in jack, you can usually trace that right back to the input of the power amplifier. You can also work it from the other side, starting at the speakers and working your way back through the circuit. The power amplifier takes the signals that have been modified by the preamp up until this point. It amplifies those signals, and it also allows them to interface properly with a low impedance load like a speaker or a set of headphones. At this point, there's almost nothing left. We're almost to the end. In most receivers, the output of the power amplifier is going to travel through some sort of protection circuit. It could be as simple as a capacitor in a capacitor-coupled amplifier. It could be a fuse in line with the speaker. In the case of the SX1250, we actually have a dedicated protection circuit with a relay. The responsibility of the protection circuit is to connect or disconnect the load from the amplifier depending on the conditions. In the SX1250, we have three protection triggers: overcurrent detect, DC offset detect, and power on time delay. This circuit is here to protect both the receiver and the speaker. It's the final line of defense before the signal leaves the device. The last block that we hit here is the speaker selector. In the case of the SX1250, we have speaker A, B, and C, and this is also where the headphone resistors and headphone jack live. And that's everything. Now that we've identified all of the individual circuits, we can start to see how they all work together. And by the way, if you're finding value in this content, consider becoming a Novolux Stereophonic member here on YouTube. It's a great way to support the channel, and it gets you some cool perks like early access to new videos. And just like that, we're back to where we started. It's the same schematic, but does it look any different now? If the answer is yes, you might like the Novolux Stereophonic Patreon page. I'm building a library there that uses real-world service and restoration projects to help you learn how to link symptoms with root causes so that you can complete more focused repairs. Which brings me to the next topic. What's the point of breaking down a schematic like this if you don't even know which circuit is causing your issue? Proper isolation is essential to efficient and effective repairs, and that's what I'm going to cover in the next video.